Maria was 75 years old when I knocked on her door. She had flour on her hands and something yummy was coming from her kitchen. Her English was a little limited, but she spoke with conviction and her eyes were steady. I launched into my campaign speech talking about the privilege of democracy and the importance of voting. And she stopped me. She said, "Honey, back home, my neighbors disappeared for standing up to the government. My cousin was shot for going to a rally. I came here so that my children could have the opportunities that I did not." And then she wiped her hands on her apron and she said, "So yes, I vote every single time. And every time I cast my ballot, it is for somebody who can't." Maria doesn't look at polling data. She doesn't think about political or theory or any of those things. But she spoke to something, the truth at the heart of democracy. Voting and democracy is not ordinary. It's extraordinary. And here's the idea that I want to share with all of you today. Democracy does not disappear with a bang. It fades when we stop showing up. And we see things where democracies crumble because of tanks rolling through or a coup that happens. But more often, democracy weakens in silence when we, you and I, ordinary everyday citizens, when we refuse to show up. And the challenge actually that we face today is not only defending democracy from outside threats, but about keeping it alive on the inside. We have to participate. We must take part and choose hope over indifference. And that's why democracy belongs to the brave. I have spent more than 2 decades in politics. I have had the massive privilege of being in opposition, of serving as a minister in this government, and also being a deputy leader of a party. And I've knocked on thousands of doors. I have stood in frozen driveways. I have sat at your kitchen tables. And everywhere I went, I heard the same thing over and over and over again. My voice doesn't matter, and my vote does not matter. I get it. I understand. A few years ago, my family and I, we poured ourselves into a campaign. 12-hour days, 18 months. I'm sure some of you have done some campaigns here. You know how insane it can get. And we had the full support of friends and family and communities and businesses. And we sold over 1,300 new memberships. And we had to knock on every door twice because we did not have access to party lists, and we had absolutely no help from the central party. In fact, it felt very rigged against us. But here's what mattered the most. Our team had earned the love and the respect of the community that I would have been so honored and so privileged to represent. And that kind of trust, that kind of connection is worth more than any list or any party machine. The final blow was that I actually never got my name on the ballot. I was cut from the race by the people who I thought were my people. I never even got the chance to run. And that night, I sat in my kitchen with campaign flyers everywhere and old coffee cups. And I sat in silence, and my heart was heavy, and my hands were trembling, and I had that same thing happening in my head. Does this matter? Does democracy matter? Does any of it matter? And then I remembered Maria. I thought of all of the people who had fought for my right to actually be here and all of the women so that I could even ask the question. In Canada, Nellie McClung and the famous Five, they didn't just fight for the right to vote. They fought for women to be considered as persons under the law in our country. In India, Sarojini Naidu, she was called the Nightingale of India. She marched and she demanded and she spoke out to make sure that women's rights were entrenched in the Indian Constitution. In Switzerland, a country renowned for democracy, women did not have the right to vote or to stand for election until 1971. So what is the unifying theme here? It is courage and persistence, because democracy is not given to you. It is not just given to you. It is built and it is nurtured and it is intentional and it is tended to. And we have to show up and rebuild it over and over again by those of us who refuse to give up. And I realized in that moment that voting always matters. Democracy always matters. It is a safeguard to human dignity, and it is a voice for those who are voiceless, for the individuals. And believe me, I have lost, and losing is hard, but winning is not about that. It is about honoring those who fought for us to have this right. I'd like to share an example. During one of my campaigns, I spoke openly about addiction and about recovery and about mental health. And it's not popular, and there's a lot of stigma, as many of you know, and it's a taboo subject. I was not elected in that race, but the ripple effect of those conversations brought it forward with other candidates and other parties. It was a change. There was changes in legislation. There was a mindset shift. And that is what democracy is. It's imperfect. And it's fragile. And it only works if you show up. I'll tell you why this issue hits home for me. My husband walked the very long and lonely and courageous path from addiction to recovery. And while I was elected and in the public face, our family lived through fear and stigma, and we witnessed some very, very interesting things, but we also witnessed extraordinary compassion and resilience and healing. And recovery is like democracy in that there's a simple fact. You have to never give up. You have to show up. And change only happens when people refuse to give up on themselves and on others and on our communities. That is what democracy asks us to do. Later on, I ran for leadership. And I hope that I carried that same integrity forward. No shortcuts, no backroom deals, no bending of values. And we didn't win, but we did something way more important. We stood with our integrity in politics, and that too is a victory. Democracy doesn't live in textbooks. It lives at your kitchen table. When I knocked on doors, we heard things that were ideological and the party sides of things. But that's not what most of the conversations were about. They were asking about their children's schools and hospital wait times and whether or not our small businesses were going to survive. For them, they were voting for affordable groceries, safety, and dignity. And then I thought, not everyone in the world even has the chance to voice their concerns. Just a short while back, I know this young woman personally. She's 23 years old, brilliant, full of promise. And her crime was loving another woman. She survived a desperate attempt on her life. And do you want to know what she wished for when I talked to her? The opportunity to vote for her leader, for democracy, to live freely, to love freely. Her wish was freedom. And we have a choice, and we are questioning whether or not to use our democracy when many in this world do not have that privilege. She was willing to risk everything for the possibility of democracy. And many of us who actually have this right, we just ask, oh, is it even worth it? So let me ask you, what would disappear from your community if no one showed up? Your schools, your hospitals, voices for those who do not have a voice? And let me tell you, politicians do not just count ballots, they study them, and they see who showed up and who didn't. When young people stay home, their issues vanish from the agenda. When struggling families stay home, affordability is ignored. When communities stay home, their needs go unseen. And yet, globally, we're showing up less and less. In Canada's last federal election, less than 40% of our 18 to 24-year-olds voted. In India, more than 60% of the youth show up, and sometimes they have to walk miles in blistering heat and stand for hours and hours in line to vote, for that privilege to vote. Same generation, same world, very different understanding of privilege. When people show up, leaders pay attention. When people stay home, that vacuum is filled with money and power. It will fill the silence. And democracy will only survive if we all show up. Democracy is like a garden. If you nurture it, it grows. If you neglect it, it withers. Every ballot that each of us casts is like a beautiful spring rain that feeds that garden. And it shapes your children's schools and your family's health care and the cost of groceries, the dignity of our elders, the safety of our streets. The gift of democracy is choice. The right to have a voice in shaping the world that you live in. The gift of democracy isn't that it's perfect, it's that it's possible. The possibility to change, to begin again, and to hope. So I'm asking you to do so much more than just showing up and vote. I want you to take somebody by the hand and bring them with you. Drive them to the location where they can put their ballot forward. Remind your children, your friends, your neighbors of the power of voting and what that means in a democracy. Door knock, help a candidate, donate, volunteer, put up signs, be brave for democracy. And when you step into that voting booth, I want you to think about Maria and her flower-covered hands. I want you to think about this young woman whose only wish was to be able to love freely. And remember my husband, who found the courage to rebuild his life. Each of these stories has this beautiful truth, this line that connects them. And it's about the courage to never give up. Democracy demands that we not give up on yourself, on your community, on your freedom. So please, show up for Maria. Show up for your neighbors and for those who cannot. Because democracy is not just a privilege we have. It will only live by the things that we do. Thank you.